On Witts Island off Tea Gardens is an old wreck, standing on the slipways of an old shipbuilding yard. At this stage, the vessel's identity remains unknown, but a new society which has taken on the mammoth job of exploring Newcastle's shipwrecks has made this its first task. The society is called the NRMA, the Newcastle Region Marine Archaeological Society. The president is David Trent.
Well, to date, obviously, it's one of the early drugs that plied the river, up to the mile legs, probably serviced the logging industry, also probably hold wheat, vegetables, produce, etc. So it's obviously been put up on the ways and abandoned.
Why are you so interested in this vessel?
Well, several reasons. It's fairly typical of river traffic, etc., early shipbuilding in Australia that's often lost. And so unless we record that in another 100 years' time, this type of information goes, because it's not spectacular like the big square riggers and things of that nature. So this is quite important to the history of the country, as Australia started and got its roots and built. And to us, it's fairly worthwhile preserving this type of thing, the smaller river traffic. It'll be researched through the archives, so we'll do historical research. We are using a new laser measurement technique to measure it and plot it on site. This morning we had a helicopter up to do aerial photography, and when we get that all back to the lab, we'll put that all together, and we will have a very good picture of what the vessel was, is, and probably build dioramas and things of that nature from it.
Today, mining and maritime unions lifted a ban on the collier Sumosaki Maru, allowing her to begin loading Mount Thorley coal. The unions stopped the collier entering harbour as scheduled late last week in protest against R.W. Miller's retrenching men at their Preston Extended mine near Gunnedah. That ban was lifted pending the outcome of discussions between proprietors, the unions and the government in Sydney today on the so-called 10-point plan. That plan calls for, among other things, the reinstatement of the Gunnedah miners and the commencement of a single shift operation at the Drayton open cut near Muswellbrook. Mining unions voted last week to accept the proposals, but the proprietors are yet to make their feelings known. The Minister for Industrial Relations, Mr Hills, is now spearheading moves to settle the dispute over future employment prospects. Mr Hills held confidential discussions with proprietors and the President of the Northern Miners Federation, Mr Bill Chapman, in Sydney this afternoon.
I might have done something, I don't know what, but I'll soon see. What happened, Jim? That's right. Going one into there, Des. Right on the head. Didn't make it. No, it's there.
Mr John Harvey, Director of the Newcastle Abattoir Group, is awaiting the outcome of tonight's council meeting at Singleton, which is going to decide if it will help the group look for a meatwork site around the Singleton area. Despite the group's stand for an abattoir in Newcastle, they are now prepared to go further afield.
In Newcastle.
Well, it should be in Newcastle, but every site that's been put to the council or to other parties have been knocked back for some reason or another.
And so now, even though other areas were unacceptable, you're quite happy to go to Singleton?
Well, Singleton's a growing town, it's a good area, plus it can supply meat back to Newcastle.
Is estimated to decrease the traffic flow in the town by some 80%. President of the Wyong Chamber of Commerce, Mr. Roger Goodrich, claims this will draw the local people back into the town, and he says the Chamber of Commerce is willing to put its money where its mouth is.
The Chamber is investing $30,000 in this promotion at the end of the year. We believe that that money will be spent in correct areas, which will assist the shopper to get the best value and also enjoy coming to Wyong. That is what it's all about.
Do you think the construction of the F3 bypass of Wyong will have any adverse effects on the town?
Well, if you look at other towns where it's happened, like Gosford for instance, that was one of the ones that had happened early, and it's boomed. Port Macquarie, recently Nambucca, and Gundagai. Now Gundagai for instance, they were opposed to that new bridge going through. Now if you go to Gundagai, they're delighted, and so therefore I don't see where it would be any different for us in Wyong. We believe that because the traffic flow will diminish down to say 20%, that it will bring the local people in, whereas they're frightened off by the through traffic.
$250 guests, many of them representing Japanese and Australian companies with shares in the Port Waratah complex, attended the official opening of extensions which have lifted Newcastle's coal loading capacity to at least 28 million tonnes a year. At present, the loader is running at only about two-thirds of its new potential. But the acting Premier, Mr Ferguson, says he's confident of a steady growth in coal exports. He's also confident that in the short term, mining unions and mining companies will be able to resolve $150 million mining unions Strait refused to budge from a ban placed on the project.
And I had a meeting with the three ministers yesterday, and they're confident that the 10-point proposal put forward with refinements will be accepted, and we'll have peace in regards to the industrial disputes you're referring to at present.
Is that a firm proposal or is it simply a discussion paper? Is there room for manoeuvring on either side?
Well, surely any discussion, there's got to be room for a manoeuvre. If everyone goes in with a fixed position, we never get anywhere. And I think the Mining's Federation will give a little, and the mine owners will give a little, and because of that, I'm very hopeful the whole issue will be settled to the satisfaction of all.
It was a packed house at the Civic Theatre last night to see the legendary Spike Milligan perform. It was billed as a farewell to Australia tour, but does that mean the former goon won't be returning to our shores?
It'll be the first of a series of last times. We're organising a series of farewells. I think farewells begin the moment you're born. The moment you're born, you start to die. You start saying farewell. I'm just on my 65th year's farewell, that's all. I said farewell last year, the year before. I'll say farewell again next year. I might even say farewell to you after this interview's over.
Do you still work with Harry Seacombe at all?
No. That's a dull answer, isn't it? No, that's right. All I can say is no. I don't know. I don't know where he is even. I get phone calls from Kuala Lumpur saying I'm appearing at the Yangstong Institute. I thought, what is Harry Seacombe doing in Kuala Lumpur? When do they understand him even?
Do you enjoy touring around Australia?
Yes, I do. Yeah, it's some country, you know. If you live outside of it, you realise what a country and what a lot it's got going for it. Unfortunately, a lot of Australian people live My brother lives here, so times are pretty bad, Spike. He's got 2 cars in the garage. It's really where the depression is really on. He says turning on one of his 3 television sets. It really is very bad, and goes and has a dive in the pool. Yeah, things are very bad here, you know. It's unbelievable. You've got the best depression in the world, you know that. Really the best depression.
Would you like to settle here eventually?
Well, I almost have. Actually, I mean, I know the country possibly more than most Australians do. I've read more about the history of Australia. I've partaken in conservation of the Australian National Trust, the Brisbane Waters Historical Society. I suppose I was instrumental in saving Henry Kendall's cottage from being pulled down. A number of caves I found which were excavated by the University of Sydney. Aboriginal caves from the Guringai tribe, helped save the prison house in Balmain. Yeah, I've reported a lot of things, yes. I've done a lot for Australia, possibly more than most Australians have done.
Have you been down to have a look at the Franklin Blow Gordon?
Yes, I went up it on a raft up to the White Waters. Put the fear of Christ up me, I won't tell you that, but anyhow, and then I flew over it, and yes, I have, that's it. Is this leading to a political question, is it?
Do you support the protesters?
Yes, I do. I'm a Democrat, and I go along with the majority. The majority of Australians don't want it to be done. And not only the majority of Australians, the United Nations World Heritage Committee have decided it's such a beautiful place, it ought to be nominated. And, quiet! There's people here trying to sleep. And I was thinking if the judgment does go against the Franklin River Dam, and I have an awful feeling it will, that sets a precedent. It means all the heritage areas of the world can be set upon. You can mine the barrier reef then if you want to. It's a pretty small-minded people, government, that actually lets their emotions overcome what I'd call logic. And I think that damming that river, mind you, they can't stop damming rivers. I think when councils get together in the morning, they say, what do we do today? Say, here, how about building a dam across the South, you know? And that's why most of the rivers of the world are being dammed, you know that? I think that's one of the few rivers in Tasmania that hasn't been dammed. God knows what they're going to do after they've dammed all the rivers.
Attended the public meeting to hear delegates from the hospital union speak on the ramifications of the Richmond report on Morisset Psychiatric Hospital. The people of Morisset are worried. They say that if the recommendations made in the report are adopted, it won't only be the hospital that will be affected, it will be the whole town. It's estimated 250 to 300 hospital employees will leave the district, and with them will go some $6 million a year in wages that would have been spent in the town. Alderman Sid Brown says the impact of moving such patients into the community would be enormous.
What do you think would be the impact if Morisset Hospital was downgraded?
I think on the community the impact would be such that there'd be people in the community who are totally disadvantaged. They're being placed into an area of our society that's already disadvantaged, such as our Housing Commission areas. It's got a gigantic waiting list. We're going to be mixing 2 disadvantaged groups of people together, and it's not going to advantage either of them. I think it'd be a disaster.
The Federation of Community Organisations of Lake Macquarie, FOCAL, met last night to discuss the issue. FOCAL says the Hunter District Water Board has applied to have its Act amended to place the responsibility for payment on new sewage systems onto the consumer. The estimated cost of such a move would be some $24.5 million, some $7,200 per household. FOCAL says this is an unfair imposition. It has asked all residents in the Lake Macquarie area to write to federal and state members of Parliament, as well as the local council, asking for their support in opposing the proposed rating scheme.
Any speakers against the motion? Speakers against.
Bowls is just as much a ladies' game these days, and today saw the reopening of the Doyleson YERSL Women's Bowling Club after it was disbanded in the early 70s. On the green overlooking the sea at Doyleson, lady bowlers gathered from all over the Central Coast and Sydney. The first jack was bowled by the ladies' state president, Jean McKinnon, followed by the first ball being sent down by the reformed Doyleson YERSL Women's Bowling Club president, Yvonne Foster. Then it was one in all in. It was a great day for the Doyleson YE lady bowlers, who will now not only have regular competitions on Thursdays, but have also gained their own special room for afterwards. The management of the Doyleson YERSL have just built the room in the club to include the ladies' social functions. The club's 24 lady bowlers have indeed returned in style.
It's always encouraging to see amateur theatre companies put on something outside their normal range, and Maitland Rep is to be congratulated for attempting Oh What a Lovely War. It's a powerful piece of anti-war theatre, placing songs and dances and pro-war fever alongside the grim realities and statistics of World War I. Oh What a Lovely War makes its points in big, bold strokes, and so it needs a colourful and energetic production. Maitland Rep gave it plenty of colour, but the energy was all too intermittent, making some scenes much more successful than others. The training of raw recruits in the use of bayonets, industrialists talking about the economic necessities of war, and a hymn-singing session with a difference showed what could be achieved. But all too often, personalities did not come across the footlights. There were voices that were too soft, and diction and use of accents was often poor. Oh What a Lovely War has the basis for being a really good, strong show, but only if everyone concerned gives it power, attack, and plenty of confidence.